Hey, what up everyone? Hope you're all safe and doing well. Today we are going to be building a weather app using Django Web Framework. If you have watched my Django course for beginners, which was divided into 5 parts, you must know by now how to start a project, how to create an app, run a server, and doing all the other stuff, like making migrations, rendering HTML template, and register a model with the admin side. Great! So we will use some of what we have learned in our app today. And if you are a first-time viewer, then don't worry, I will make this tutorial as beginner-friendly as possible. This is the main interface of the app, so you got a little nice nav bar here with just a simple banner, Weather App, Django Framework, Open Weather, get your API, and this is the main site I will show you in a minute, where we will get our API key that we're going to use in our code basically. We got just a simple title saying Weather Desktop App using Python language and Django Framework. We have got a little picture just to give it a little bit of flair. Nothing fancy really, but the most important thing that it's not distracting for the eye. Just I'm trying to be careful on the UI side, on the user interface side. And here we have an input field, so choose your city. So let's say Moscow and click search. And you get the results. So country code RU for Russia, the coordinates, the XY coordinates for the map, the temperature in Celsius, the pressure 131, humidity 96, the forecast clouds with a little icon, and all these data come from the API actually. Description overcast clouds. You can modify these fields and I will show you in the code itself. You can delete some of these fields or you can add others. So yeah, it's pretty flexible. Let's say Cairo in Egypt. You can hit enter. So you get clear with little sun, description clear sky, and temperature in Celsius 2059. Now let me show you actually the Open Weather Map website. So www.openweathermap.com. So this is the main website that from which we are going to capture our API. As you see, I'm logged in, backbrace, but I think if I will click here, yeah, I will log out. Okay, and this is the API key. So just you will need to register here, having a login and password, and you will be provided an API key, which we are going to use in the code itself, right? Just to retrieve data from the API, from the JSON files. So API itself here, the current weather data, you've got a lot of different API calls that you can use. So what I'm going to be using is right here the API doc, and this is mainly it. So you can search by the city name, and this is the different approaches for the API calls, different parameters. You can search by city ID, by geographic coordinates, zip code, and so on. All right. So what I wanted to show you also is a very good feature, which is the multilingual support. All right. So you can use the lang parameter to get the output in your language. So you can add actually this little bit of code right here, and sign or and symbol, lang equal to and the language. And this is the actual list of language. So you can actually retrieve the data or return data from the API in your own language or any other language that you prefer, which is pretty cool. Also another point worth mentioning, which is the units of measurement. So the standard unit of measurement in openweathermap.org is the Kelvin, which is 273 something. It's not really useful for us because the majority of the world uses either Fahrenheit or Celsius. So I would like to use the degree Celsius. To do that, you can see here temperature is available in Fahrenheit, Celsius, and Kelvin units. For temperature in Celsius, we will use units equal to metric. And this also will be included in the API call. And I will show you how. If you want it in Fahrenheit, you can use units equal to imperial. Okay, so let me actually show you the data. So it's a JSON file, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's not an object, it looks like an object. I'm talking JavaScript, of course. The difference between the JSON and the object is the double quotes. So you can see that we have the coordinates, longitude and latitude. Main data for me is the main description and the icon. So this is a dictionary inside a list. You have base, stations, main, you have temp, feels like, and everything else. You have also country, US in this case, right? In a key called sys. So yeah, this is basically it. This is an example of the API response that we are going to get once we query for the city, like I've shown you here. So the moment you say Chicago, for example, and you click search, our web app in this case sends a post request to the API and asks to retrieve the data and render them basically on the HTML template. Okay, so let me actually show you how to do it. So first of all, let's just create a folder. It's an empty folder. I have another one, so folder. So inside that folder, I will open it with VS Code. You can open it with any text editor you prefer. It's just my preference. Let's open a terminal. And now let's actually start a project. So we'll say Django admin. So this is the way to start a project in Django. We type the command Django-admin space start project, followed by the name of the project. So in this case, I will call it weather project. Okay. So Django has created actually a weather project folder, all right, with these different files and a main file called manage.py. So there it is. So let's actually enter the weather project folder. The next step, we need to use the manage.py. So we'll say Python space manage.py space followed by a command called start app and the name of the app. So we will call our app just weather app for simplicity. Okay, perfect. So we have now the weather app and the weather project inside a whole folder called weather project. All right. So this is the map to our files. And we need to do some configuration steps as always. So for the first time viewers, these steps are very important so our Django project can work properly. So the first thing I need to do is in the file called settings.py in the weather project. All right. Never forget that there are two folders inside the main weather project folder. One is for the app and one is for the weather project, which has the settings, the URLs, the WSGI, ASCII, and the init. Okay. And a project can have multiple apps, but for this particular case or application, we will have just one app. First of all, in the settings, I need to include my app in the installed apps. So let's do that. Just enter the name of the app, which is weather app. Another thing I need to do in the settings.py, and this is something might be new to you, whenever you want to add CSS files, JavaScript files, or image files, you need something called static. Okay, so this is basically a way to tell Django that there are extra files so they can be rendered properly in the HTML template. So by default, you have static underscore URL equal to static. Okay. And in this case, I will include only image. This is the only image that I want to include. This is not an, this is an icon which will be displayed as an image, but it's different. This is a static one. It's not dynamic. So it should be included in the folder. We will create a folder here, and I will show you in a second. So let's first do this step. So what I will type is media underscore URL equal to, and I will use a folder called images. I didn't create it yet, so I will call it images. And images folder is going to be inside the static folder. Also, I need to add this line, static files underscore dirs equal to OS, which stands for the operating system module, dot path dot join base dir, and I want to point to that folder called static. So this is very important. Static here inside the static files underscore dirs points to the folder that we are going to create, in which you are going to put your images or CSS files or JavaScript files. And don't forget a comma here. Okay, so this is mainly it for the settings.py. I need also to add a couple of things in the urls.py, which is the settings and the static. So I will need to map the app to main project URLs file. This is what I'm doing. So I will say simply from django.conf, or the configuration of Django, I want to import settings. I also want from django.conf.urls.static, I want to import static. All right. So this is very important in the urls.py, which is in the main weather project. All right, because we're going to create another urls py inside the weather app. Okay, cool. So what I need to do next is I want to, as I said, I want to map the application, the weather app, to the main project URLs file here. So path empty string, and I want to include, and this is something that you have seen probably if you have watched the course, we have done it many times. We actually should add the application inside the URL patterns dot URLs. All right, and it's showing include that it's not identified because we need to import it. Okay, just the last step, we need to add static, and the settings dot media underscore URL document underscore root equal to settings dot media underscore root. Okay, perfect. So let's move on to weather app. So in the weather app, I want also to create a file called urls.py, and I want from django.urls to import the path, and I want from the current directory to import the views. And inside views, inside here, we are going to write the main method or the main function, which will be called index, that will render the HTML template. So let's get back to URLs, and let's say URL patterns, push it below, and also I need a path for an empty string, and I want to point to views file dot index function. This is the name of the function that I'm going to create actually. Okay. So in views, here we are going to write our main function, as I said. Okay, so let's start. The first thing that I want to import is the URL library for the request, because we will have a post type of request to the website or to the API. Okay, so what we will need to say is actually import URL lib.request, And I want also to import JSON because I will need to convert from the JSON to Python dictionary, just for Python to be able to read the JSON data. It's the same in JavaScript. You will need to convert the JSON to JavaScript and vice versa. The same thing here, we will need to convert from the JSON to Python. That's it. These are the two modules that I want to import. So let's create the function, which we'll call it index, and it takes a parameter of request. So if the request dot method is equal to post, then what I want to do, I want to declare a variable. I will call it city, and city actually is equal to request dot post whatever the name of the city is. And I want to declare another variable. I will call it source, and source will contain all JSON data from the API. So will be equal to the URL library dot request dot a method called URL open. And what we want to open, we want to open the API itself. So let me just copy that. Okay, so http://api.openweathermap.org data 2.5 weather and interrogation mark q, which stands for query, and the query should be followed by the name of the city that you're asking for or you're requesting. So whatever the name of the city is, this is just a placeholder concatenated with, and we will actually, if you remember when I spoke about the units, and we're going to use the degree Celsius, not the Kelvin, then we need to include units equal to metric. So units equal to metric, and I want actually to grab the API key, which is right here. You will go ahead and copy yours. Okay, and that's it. And just one very important note, when you will write this piece of code, be careful that you don't have any spaces inside the single quotes. Otherwise you will have an error. And I want to read all that. So next what we want to do is we want to convert the JSON data to a dictionary. So let me just make this smaller on the same line with city and source. So I will declare another variable. I will call it list of data. So the list of data will be equal to the JSON dot method called loads, and I want to pass inside the source as an argument. The list of data will hold everything that we are requesting. So all the data that we want regarding that specific city that we have made a query about. And now I want to create a data dictionary. Okay, so this is a variable that will hold everything that should be rendered on the HTML page. So we'll say data equal to, we need country code, the coordinates, the temp, the pressure, the humidity. We want also the main, description, and the icon. So this is basically it, the coordinates, right? We want the main, description, the icon, right? So this is what I'm writing actually. Okay, and feel free to add or deduct any of these fields as you like. Okay, so these are the keys. We need values for these keys. So the value for the country code is going to be the list of data with the index of sys, right? Where is it? So yeah, so sys. So this is the index for the list of data, and inside it I want the country. So inside sys we have another index which is country, just to display the country code. And I want this in a form of string, so I will wrap that in stir method. And we will do the same thing for all the other fields. All right, so let me just copy them quickly. Just copy all of that. So it's basically the same as the first one. So list of data with the coordinates, longitude and latitude. Maybe I can put this right here for you to see better. Okay, so you have got the temperature, main temp. So the temperature right here inside the main, right? Index main and temp. We have the pressure, right? So you've got the pressure, you've got the humidity, so pressure and humidity. Then you have main description and icon. And these three fields actually are inside the weather. And if you notice inside the JSON, you have, so coordinates is a key, and the value for that is another dictionary or another object, longitude and latitude. But the weather, in this case, we have a list or an array. And the list has one index only, ID, main description, and icon. So in this case, what we do, we set the main, which will be equal to list of data. So we have weather as index, the same thing that we have done with the other fields, but we are choosing the first index, and the first index in the weather list is number 0, right? So weather followed by 0, and what we want the main index. We continue to select what we want from fields. Okay, so this is a little bit tricky. The same thing goes for the description and for the icon. And it doesn't matter here to convert that into a string or not, because anyway it will be converted to an image. Okay, so this is it. This is the main data dictionary. Then let's actually print the data just to show it in the terminal. Else, and the data will be an empty dictionary, just to return nothing. And by the end of the function, we want to return render. So we will render the request. And here we want to actually return the HTML page. So I will put it in a folder called main. So main index.html and followed by the dictionary, which is the data. Okay, so let's go ahead to weather.app. Let me create a folder. I will call it templates, and inside templates I will create another folder. I will call it main, and inside main let's create our index.html. all right, so I know that this is not about HTML, but I will copy the whole thing and I will explain it briefly. So I will paste it here. And I've used actually Bootswatch, which is a website for Bootstrap themes. So let me actually show you that very quickly. Bootswatch.com. Okay, free themes for Bootstrap, and I've used the Cerulean theme. So actually there are two approaches to use the Bootswatch or the Bootstrap themes. The first one is to download the file itself, the Bootstrap CSS, include it in the main folder or in the templates folder, and just load static, and you can render that. This is one way. The other way is just to use the CDN. So actually I will be using that. I will be using the CDN. So cdnjs.com libraries Bootswatch. And this is the Cerulean theme that I want. Just copy the link tag and paste it here. And one very important note, in the HTML file you need to include this line, load static. Again, it has to do everything with the CSS, JavaScript and image files. Alright, without the load static it won't work. You won't be rendering any CSS, or you won't be running any JavaScript files. You won't show any image files if you won't do this. So this is very important. This is one very important note. Alright, so let me walk you through this very quickly. So in the head you have the CDN for the Bootswatch theme. You have a title, weather app, which is here, weather app. Then you have the body. So you have a class, navbar, expand, large, fixed top, and so on, with the color saying Django framework, with a little link tag, okay, which is right here. all of that. So this is this div, then 3 breaking lines, then weather desktop app using Python language, so this part right here. Then what I want now is to render the image. Okay, so I've included just a simple image tag source, but this is the Django template language. So in curly braces and the percent signs, static followed by the folder name, which is images. Oh, we didn't put it yet. Okay, so let me do that quickly. So inside the weather app, let's create a folder. We'll call it static. And inside static, we'll call images. And as I said, if you have CSS files, you can create another folder, call it CSS, and the same for JavaScript. And you can include any files that you want and render them via this statement right here, load static. All right, so inside images, so let me actually delete this one. All right, so inside images, I'll just copy the image, just put it in images. All right, so this is the image that we are going to render. And I got this image, by the way, from a website for free images. It's called pngegg.com. All right, so here you can, as you see here, just type weather and you choose any PNG image that you want. Okay, I have chosen this one. But just feel free to choose any picture that you want. Okay, so with this out of the way, let's move on. Let's just close this one and let me continue. So inside the images folder and the weather.png, okay, is in place. So all is set. Class image style, and I give it a width of 100 pixels, margin bottom minus 50 pixels, just to be rendered this way. You can change the design. Really, this video is not about the UI at all, so you can escape this part if you like. Another point really worth mentioning is the CSRF token, which stands for Cross-Site Request Forgery. And this is just about protection against malicious attacks. So let me show you that. Right. So if you just type CSRF Django, okay, so the CSRF middleware and template tag provides easy to use protection against cross-site request forgeries. This type of attack occurs when a malicious website contains a link, a form button, or some JavaScript that is intended to perform some action on your website using the credentials of a logged-in user who visits the malicious site in their browser. Okay, so as we are using the post request in our application, where is it? Yeah. So you'll see here that the form that we're using, we are using a method of post, okay, which is compatible with our function or method here, which is post. So as we are using the post method to as a type of request, so as we're using the post requests, the site here says that in any template that uses a post form, use the CSRF token tag inside the form element if the form is for an internal URL. So form method post and followed by this statement, CSRF underscore token. Okay, so this is what we are doing. It's very important. Just the most important part is this part right here. So we are plugging all everything basically in the views, right? So the coordinate, so the country code, the coordinate, the temp, pressure, humidity, main description icon, the exact same fields here, except just for the icon, which I'm using inside here. So it will be rendered after the forecast on the same line with the forecast. All right, so this uses an image after the main, http openweathermap.org image w, and I'm plugging the icon .png. If you will not do .png, if you will not do .png, it will be returned in a form of text. I think, yeah, this here, 01D. So you will need to do that. You will need to do the icon plugged in the Django template language .png, right? Alternative image, style width, and I give it 70 pixels. Again, you're free to increase or decrease the width of the image itself. All right. So that's it, basically it. And again, you can ignore the boot swatch or the bootstrap theme, and you can do simple CSS. It's not really about the CSS or the bootstrap, it's about the logic, right? Because we're working with a back-end language. But it's good to have also just a view on the front-end side, okay? So I guess we're all set. So the URLs is done, the views is done. URLs here, we have included everything. In the settings, all is okay. This is just a general checking. The templates, the static, okay. So let's go ahead, actually, let me just shut the browser. And let's go ahead and try it. Let's hope that we won't find any bugs. So let's actually make migrations to see if Django will detect any errors. So weather project, and we'll say Python manage.py, make migrations. Okay, so no changes detected. This is a good sign. And the same thing, but we'll say migrate. Okay, perfect. So all is good. Now I have the courage to try it with you guys. So say Python manage.py run server. All right. Open on the local host 127.0.0.1 on port 8000. And there it is. So let's try Boston. And we get the results. Neat, perfect. So we have country code, temperature in Celsius, pressure, humidity, forecast, mist, with this little icon or image, description, mist. Let's have another city, let's say Madrid, Spain, okay, clouds, overcast clouds. Let's see Alexandria in Egypt. So it's clear sky, right? 1871 degrees, which is pretty good, right, in December. All right, so this is it, guys. I will leave the link to the GitHub repository for the code, so you can check out the index.html file. Again, you're free to change the layout, the user interface. You can do just simple CSS styling. And yeah, if you changed anything in the logic or the Python side itself, please let me know. It's always good to know how you guys are doing. If you're doing it in a better way, I will be really happy to take a look at that. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, and I will probably see you next year, 2021. Stay safe and be well.